Okay, so you know how much we love it when, you all send us stuff that just like completely blows our minds,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just so cool to see what you're all into.
Definitely.
And we got a whole stack of articles this time, and they're all about this new music group, Zen Monks Music from MU Temple.
Zen monks making music. I mean, that's kind of a head scratcher, right?
Yeah, it's like, wait, what? Zen monks are like all about silence and meditation and this and that, and then suddenly they're like rocking out. I don't know.
Right. Like, what instruments are we even talking about here?
Exactly. Like, what does that even sound like?
So, okay, let's dive into this a little bit.
Yeah, because these articles you found are amazing. Like, they talk about like how the band even got started,
Yeah.
like their whole like origin story, and then the philosophy behind it.
Oh, I bet there's a lot of Zen Buddhism stuff in there.
Oh yeah, a ton of Zen Buddhism, and then like what their music actually sounds like, because apparently it like defies genre. And then there's even like this kind of beginner's guide to Zen concepts, like kukyins,
Right.
those like riddles.
Well, I need a beginner's guide to those for sure.
So today we're gonna like fully immerse ourselves in this whole world of Zen monks music.
Right.
And we're gonna try to like wrap our heads around what it's all about, and maybe even make some of these Zen ideas a little less mysterious.
A little less Zen.
Yeah, for those of us who are, just starting out.
Well, you know what really caught my eye, and I think it's a question the band grapples with themselves, is this whole idea of, can music really be the sound of no sound?
Right.
It's such a paradox.
Yeah, it's like, what does that even mean?
Makes you want to listen right away.
It really does. And like the band themselves even says like when you first hear their music, you might be a little confused. Like,
I can imagine.
It's got these really like slow rhythms and these super subtle melodies, and the lyrics are kind of like riddles, and it's definitely not something you're going to hear like on the radio,
No top 40 for them.
Yeah, but their answer to that whole like, this is so fascinating. They're like, no, this is the music of no sound.
Ooh.
It's like they're challenging you to figure it out.
They're drawing you in.
Yeah.
Okay, so their music's already mysterious.
Yes.
But then there's this name, MU Temple.
Yeah.
Where is this temple? I couldn't find it on Google Maps.
Right. Like, is it like some cool hidden temple in the mountains or something?
Yeah.
So they actually say it's not a real physical place. Like, it doesn't exist in the real world.
Okay.
But they describe it as this temple that exists only in the listener's heart.
That's so Zen.
Yeah, right?
So poetic.
So they're saying it's like this quiet space that maybe like opens up inside you when you're listening to their music, like late at night or something.
I like that idea.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how they connect this MU temple idea and the whole concept of MU to this super famous Zen koan.
Oh, yeah?
You know the one, does a dog have Buddha nature? And the answer is MU.
Which means?
Well, like usually it's translated as no.
Okay, but with koans, it's never that straightforward.
Never, right. There's always some other layer.
Right.
So the band actually says that it's not like a straight up rejection or like a big empty void.
Okay.
It's more about this idea of like potentiality, like something waiting to happen.
Oh, okay, I see.
Like a musical note that hasn't been played yet, or like the silence that's still there after a sound fades away.
Oh, that's good.
Or even just the act of listening itself.
It's not the answer, but the potential for an answer.
Yeah, it's like they're saying the answer isn't yes or no, it's something beyond that.
I like it.
Yeah, and their whole mission is to create music specifically to listen to this no-thingness.
Okay.
It's like this invitation to explore, like what kind of sounds exist within that space of possibility.
So we, the listeners, we're exploring with them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shared journey.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And it all kind of comes from this like what if question they ask, like, what if real Zen monks started a band?
What if? It's a good question.
Yeah, right. And it's like a totally bizarre idea.
Totally. And they go on to describe these band members.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a vivid picture.
Oh, yeah.
So the lead vocalist, he's this Western monk.
Okay.
But get this, he used to be a businessman in Europe. Like super successful, but totally stressed out.
Oh, yeah, like the corporate grind.
Yeah. Deadlines, caffeine, always on Slack.
Like the opposite of a peaceful Zen monk.
Totally.
Okay, so what happened?
So he was in Japan, and he heard a temple bell.
Okay.
And it just, like, changed everything for him.
That must have been one powerful bell.
Right. Like, what was in that sound?
Yeah.
But anyway, he just walks away from his whole life.
Wow.
And becomes a monk.
That's wild.
And now his whole philosophy is that, like, he used to think singing was praying.
Okay.
But now he knows that silence is like an even deeper song.
Whoa.
I mean, that's deep, right?
That's so deep. It's like saying that stillness
Yeah.
has so much more to say than like all the noise we usually surround ourselves with.
Exactly, and it ties right back into that whole idea of no sound.
Right.
Okay, so we have this Western monk lead singer,
Yeah.
and he's joined by these Japanese Zen monks, all wearing those, like, black robes
Oh, wow.
and playing traditional instruments,
Like what?
like the koto, the shakuhachi, the shamisen,
Oh, cool.
even singing bowls.
So they're creating sound, but within this framework of silence.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the sound is emerging from the stillness.
So how do they describe this music?
Well, it's really hard to pin down genre-wise.
I bet.
They use all these interesting combinations like lo-fi times Zen,
Lofi and Zen.
neoclassical times nothingness,
Wow.
ambient times koan.
Okay.
They even call it listening sutra or seated chanting.
That is really outside the box.
It is.
So what are the key elements they're going for?
Well, they talk a lot about like minimal sound
Okay.
and a huge sense of space and silence. Like the music is really sparse and there's a lot of room for the sounds to breathe.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and they talk about the bass being hesitant.
Hesitant.
Yeah, like it's not driving the music forward in a typical way.
Uh-huh.
And then the reverb they use, it's there, but it's not like super overwhelming.
Oh, so it's like they're stripping everything back to the bare minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're trying to get to something essential.
And what is it they want the listener to get out of this?
Well, they say that their greatest success is if the listener just feels relaxed.
Just relax.
Yeah, like without even really knowing why.
Interesting.
Like it's not about like analyzing the music or like having some kind of intellectual response. It's more about this feeling.
It's about a vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And they connect this back to the whole idea of Zen,
Yeah.
which isn't about giving you answers, but about making you ask your own questions.
Mm.
They see their music as being kind of like a single stone.
A stone.
Yeah, like in a Japanese rock garden.
Oh, those Zen gardens.
Yeah, or like the sound of a bell ringing in complete silence.
I see.
It's about that one perfect element
Yeah.
that creates a sense of peace and contemplation.
And they're hoping that their music will resonate within the listener.
Yeah. And they even say, like, it's about creating your own Zen,
Your own Zen.
which I think is a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah, and it brings us back to this idea of MU temple.
Right.
Existing inside of each of us, like our own personal temple of silence.
Yeah. It's a really powerful image.
And speaking of MU temple, their origin story is just as weird and wonderful as their music.
Oh, tell me about it. They say it all started because the wind came into the room?
The wind came into the room.
How Zen is that?
That's like Zen poetry right there.
Yeah, like some ordinary thing leading to something extraordinary.
Yeah, like it was meant to be.
So they describe this key moment in a meditation hall.
Huh?
And there's a window slightly open, and this breeze blows in.
Okay.
And it knocks over this Buddhist sutra, one of their sacred texts.
And it lands right at the feet of a Buddha statue.
That's a sign if I ever saw one.
And the Western monk, who they call Master No Sound.
Master No Sound. I like
Yeah,
it.
he experiences this like resonance from this event. He calls it his first note, like the beginning of everything.
Wow, so that's how it all began.
Yeah, so before this Master No Sound guy was living a totally different life.
I can imagine.
He was an IT project manager in Europe,
Oh, wow.
like totally caught up in the rat
Oh,
race.
deadlines and the stress.
Yeah, tons of caffeine, always on his phone.
The opposite of Zen.
Totally. And apparently he even Googled how to disappear quietly.
He was searching for a way out.
Yeah, and he found this quote that said, if you want to disappear, try sitting down and not standing up again.
Oh, wow. And that's what led him to Zen.
Yeah, he basically took he just started sitting.
Really?
Yeah, and then he moves to Japan
Wow.
and becomes a disciple at this Zen temple.
That's a huge life change.
Yeah, right. So his life at the monastery, it was all about like stripping away all that stimulation from his old life.
Yeah.
You know, the rituals, the chores, the silence.
It's like a reset.
Yeah, and they say that's when the music started to emerge within him.
So it's like the silence itself gave birth to the music.
That's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah. And, you know, Zen temples actually have their own unique soundscape.
Really?
Bells, wooden clappers, chanting, and then long stretches of silence.
Oh.
It's all very intentional.
So within that environment, Master No Sound has this dream where he sees all these monks playing these traditional instruments.
Okay.
And they're all playing with their eyes closed.
Like it's an internal experience.
Yeah, and he wakes up and his first thought is, this should be recorded.
Not, I should learn how to play that, or that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it's like he knew this music had a purpose.
Like it needed to be shared.
Yeah, so he gathers all the monks.
Okay.
And he asks them this question.
What's the...
If you were to make a sound, what would you play? And they give all these really interesting answers like silence, the sound of wind.
Wow.
I haven't decided yet.
They're really thinking about it.
Yeah, it shows how much intention they put into sound.
It's not just noise to them.
Exactly. So they start to like weave these sounds together.
Oh, how do they even begin to compose like that?
Well, they say they start from space.
Starting from space.
And they record in nothingness.
This is blowing my mind.
And then they mix with layers of margin.
Wow. They have a whole different vocabulary for music.
Yeah, it's like they've redefined everything.
Okay.
And their whole thing is that they're not trying to make music that's enjoyable.
Not enjoyable.
They're trying to make music that's easeful.
Easeful.
Which is an interesting distinction, right?
It's very interesting.
So they admit that they're a virtual band.
Which these days isn't so unusual.
No, not at all. But they make it clear that their music is real.
Okay.
Like the sounds, the emotions,
Yeah.
the breath behind the instruments. Right. It's all genuine.
It's not artificial.
And they say that MU Temple comes into being when the listener closes their eyes.
So it doesn't matter where you are physically.
It could be in your study on a bus with your headphones.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
It's all about that internal space.
Yeah, it's like a temple in your mind.
Your own personal MU temple.
Which brings us back to the wind.
The wind.
That random breeze that started it all.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for the creative process.
Totally. Like inspiration can come from anywhere.
And the connection between their music and Zen is so clear.
Oh, definitely. And one of the best examples is this story about a Zen master.
Okay, I love a good Zen story.
So a monk asks his master, what is sound?
What is sound? Good question.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of answering the master, just stands silently in the garden.
Classic Zen move.
I know, right? And then he finally says, now your question has already sounded. Whoa.
I know, Rat.
So simple, but so deep.
So the band actually sees this moment, the sound of the question itself.
Right. That's the beginning of composition.
That's a whole other way of thinking about music.
It is, because in Zen, sound isn't just like information for your brain to process.
It's not data.
Yeah, or just a tool for communication.
Yeah.
It's not about the artist expressing themselves.
It's something more.
Yeah, it's about the act of listening itself.
In the moment.
Yeah. And it disappears just as quickly.
Ephemeral.
Exactly. And they point out that all these sounds already exist in the world.
Yeah.
Like wind and leaves and rain.
The sounds of nature.
Yeah, and bells and even the ringing in our ears when it's silent. They're saying their music is about reminding us of these sounds.
Like helping us to pay attention.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And their lyrics, they're not about giving you answers.
No.
They're all about asking questions.
Really?
Yeah. They give this example of voiceless farewell. To whom does it wave?
That's not your typical love song.
No, it's like a kokuening in song form.
Mm-hmm.
It's making you think about what farewell really means. And they don't sing to give you an answer. They sing to like revel in the fact that there isn't one.
That's a very Zen approach.
It is. And their melodies, they say, they just follow them.
Like a river.
Yeah, wherever they want to go.
So they're not trying to force them into like a preconceived structure.
No, it's about letting the music unfold naturally.
Yeah.
And they talk about their composition process as being like excavation.
Excavation.
Yeah, like they're not creating something new.
Wow.
They're uncovering something that was always there.
Like an archaeological dig.
Yeah, but for sound.
Interesting.
And then there's this whole concept of ma.
Ma.
Which is super important in Japanese aesthetic.
I've heard of that.
It's like space or interval.
Okay.
And in their music, they actually consider ma to be the main melody.
The main melody. So the silence is the melody.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Ma is all about the emptiness, the silence, the breath, the timing.
Okay.
It's about the anticipation of something that hasn't happened yet.
It's like pregnant with possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And the sound is secondary to this.
Yeah, like they give these examples.
Yeah.
The echo of a shakuhachi note, the resonance of a singing bowl.
Okay.
It's all about the space around the sounds.
That's so cool. I never thought about music like that.
Yeah, it's a whole different way of listening.
And for them making music, it's not about performing.
Right.
It's about entering the space.
Yeah, becoming one with the silence.
So it's a personal journey for them?
It is.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
They say their goal is to give listeners a sense of silence.
Okay.
But they have to use sound to do that?
It's a paradox.
Yeah, total paradox.
Like, how can you create silence with sound?
Exactly.
So they say it's about reminding you of silence with sound.
Reminding you of silence.
Yeah, or like creating something that you only notice when it disappears.
Like the song ends and there's just...
That's when you really feel the silence.
Right.
They even say that the silence at the end of a track
Yeah.
might be the most important part.
Oh, wow.
It's like the aftertaste.
I like that.
And ultimately, they see all of this as silence practice.
Silence practice.
Yeah, like it's not about self-expression.
Okay.
It's about disappearing into the sound and the silence.
And Master No Sound puts it this way.
How's that?
When I sing, my voices simply float up from the silence.
Wow.
Pretty profound, huh?
Yeah, and it's really similar to this Zen practice called shikantaza,
Shikantaza.
which basically means just sitting.
Just sitting.
Yeah, you just sit in meditation without focusing on anything specific.
Oh, interesting.
And in their case, it's like just sitting, just listening, just singing.
I see.
It's about letting go of control and letting the experience unfold.
That's pretty radical.
And then they ask this really big question.
What's
Can music actually lead to enlightenment?
big question?
Right. And they don't give a definitive answer.
Of course not. It's a kokian.
Yeah, but they do offer this thought.
Okay.
They say, if a sound awakens your inner silence,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a kokian for you.
Oh, like that.
It's like it points you towards something deeper.
And their mission is to create these answerless songs.
Yeah.
That make you question what sound really is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about their recording space.
MU Temple.
Yes, MU Temple. The most common question they get is,
Where is it?
exactly, because it's not a physical place.
Right.
And their answer is perfect. They say MU Temple is nowhere and everywhere.
It's the ultimate Zen answer.
Right. So it's not a building, it's a space.
A state of mind.
Yeah. And a spirit.
A spirit of recording.
Yeah. And they say it's reborn with each new recording.
Interesting.
So they don't even see it as a studio.
Okay.
It's not about soundproofing and equipment.
Right.
It's about preparing to welcome the sound.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And their pre-recording ritual is fascinating.
What do they do?
It's not about checking microphones.
No?
They clean the space, arrange the air.
Arrange the air.
Yeah, they burn incense and adjust the light.
Wow.
They're creating the right atmosphere for sound to arrive.
It's like they're setting the stage.
Yeah, and they say they don't summon the sound.
Okay.
They wait for it to visit.
Like an honored guest.
Yeah, and their post-recording process is super unique.
Why did they call it?
Dry landscape gardening as mixing.
What? How does that even work?
Okay, so you know those Japanese rock gardens?
Yeah.
With the carefully placed stones?
Yeah.
So they say their mixing is like that.
I'm trying to picture this.
It's not about adjusting levels and adding effects.
Right.
It's about placing each sound carefully in the space.
Like each sound is a stone in the garden.
Yeah, and the placement of one sound changes the whole thing.
So it's all about balance and energy?
Exactly. And they even talk about nothingness being present in the recording space.
Nothingness.
Yeah, like they might leave the center of the room empty.
Okay.
No microphone, no performer.
Yeah.
But they feel like sound dwells there anyway.
It's like potential sound waiting to be born.
And they connect this to this Zen idea of mui no shinin,
Mui no shinin.
which means the true person without rank,
Okay.
who is nowhere and everywhere at the same time.
Whoa.
So they're saying that the recordings try to express this invisible presence.
Through the use of space.
Exactly. It's all about emptiness and potentiality.
And while there are no blueprints for MU Temple,
Yeah.
they believe that each listener creates their own version of it.
In their mind.
Yeah.
Like it could be a hut in the woods or a mat in the city.
Everyone's MU Temple is unique.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
And they see space as being tied to time and breath.
Time and breath.
Yeah. So the recordings don't use click tracks or metronomes.
Oh, wow. So they're not tied to a specific tempo.
No, they say this moment expands and contracts like breath. And time arises within the music.
So they're recording the place, not just the sound.
Exactly. It's like capturing a moment in time.
Yeah.
And then they have this crazy technique called soundless recording.
Soundless recording. What does that even mean?
So sometimes they press record without making any intentional sound.
Okay.
And they end up with these silent files.
Silent files.
But they're not actually empty.
Oh,
There might be faint bird songs or wind or the sound of a page turning.
okay.
And they use these sounds as space within their tracks.
So that they're not mistakes.
No, they're part of the music.
Wow.
They're saying that recording isn't about capturing sound.
It's about recording the silence.
Exactly.
So for them, the whole process of recording is about embracing that moment, that space, that breath.
Yeah, it's totally intertwined with their Zen practice.
Okay, so let's talk about their debut album,
The Sound of No Sound.
which perfectly captures their whole philosophy.
It really does, and the title comes from this question, what is the sound of no sound?
It's a Kowian,
Yeah, and the album actually ends as a question, too.
leaving you to ponder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they say that the album title is basically like asking what is Zen.
Through music.
Yeah, they're saying searching for sound can lead you to silence, and listening to silence can help you hear new things.
Yeah.
They even admit that it's impossible to make no sound into sound, but they tried anyway, and that's what the album is.
15 tracks of sonic exploration.
And the order of the tracks is really deliberate.
Oh, how so?
It mirrors the experience of Zazen.
Seated meditation.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how does that work?
So each track title reflects a different stage of meditation.
Okay, give me some examples.
Okay, so the first track is called What Returns,
What returns?
and it's about the memory of life that comes up in silence.
Interesting.
Then there's the wordless question,
Okay.
which is like the first koan you ask yourself.
Oh.
And then before the answer,
For the answer.
which is about sitting with the silence of the question before you try to find a solution.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. And then there's just sit,
Just sit.
which is like the essence of Zazen.
Yeah.
And then floating mind,
Floating mind.
which is about when your thoughts wander during meditation.
We've all been there.
And echoes of emptiness,
Oh, wow.
which suggests that it's not a voice that resonates, but emptiness itself.
Hmm.
And then later on, there's One Note to Liberation,
One note to liberation.
which is based on this Zen idea that one perfect note can resolve everything.
Powerful.
Yeah. And then the final track is The Inner Flame,
The inner flame.
which represents the spark of awareness that remains at the end of meditation.
So it's like a whole meditation journey in music form.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And during the recording process, their intention was never to perform.
Really?
Yeah, they never said, let's perform.
What do they say?
Let's sit and listen.
Wow.
Each member played their sound, shamisen, koto, shakuhachi, voice silence.
And they layered those together.
Yeah, but they saw it as the overlapping of prayers,
Oh.
not just sounds.
It's like a ritual.
And when they had doubts, Master No Sound would just say, not knowing is the Zen completion.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's about accepting that you don't have all the answers.
And being okay with that.
Exactly.
So they consider the album to be both their practice and the listener's zazen.
Yeah, they're saying there's no right or wrong way to listen.
You can be attentive or passive or even fall asleep.
It's all valid.
And the question of how you received the sound
Yeah.
is part of the experience.
And when the last track ends,
Yeah,
you're left with silence.
but it's not the end.
No, it's a new beginning.
New beginning,
And you might be left with this question like, what was that music?
which is another form of Zen.
Exactly. It's about keeping that inquiry alive.
Yeah.
So they're presenting the album as like a letter from a soundless place.
A letter to the listener.
Yeah, a very personal and intimate offering.
And they really focus on the listener in their vision.
Oh, yeah, they imagine you with your headphones on at night.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you are.
It could be your bedroom, a train, a study.
Anywhere.
It's your MU temple.
Exactly.
And they believe that the music doesn't change the place,
Okay.
but you change the place through the music.
Interesting.
So even though their music is very subtle
Yeah.
and doesn't have a strong message,
Right.
they believe it leaves something behind.
Like an imprint.
Yeah. And when you notice that something,
Mm-hmm.
you're not just listening to music anymore.
Yeah, okay.
You're dialoguing with your own space.
Having a conversation with the silence.
Yeah.
And they say that the most important person in all of this
Yeah.
is you, the listener.
The listener completes the experience.
Yeah. The music is born when you listen to it.
And your own MU temple is revealed
And they believe everyone has experienced nothingness.
at some point.
Yeah, maybe it was a snowy night or the wind blowing curtains.
Yeah. Those quiet moments.
And they're saying their music evokes those memories.
And brings you back to the present moment.
Exactly.
Wow.
So they're not trying to take you somewhere.
No, they're trying to bring you back to here and now.
And if their music touches someone,
Yeah.
they don't see it as delivering something.
Okay.
They see it as the listener noticing something they already knew.
Something that was already inside.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the album ends with this question.
What is sound to you? Host speaker.